1776. While the world remembers this year for the birth of America, something far more secret was also born in Bavaria. A hidden order, sworn to knowledge and reason, but soon accused of plotting global control. They called themselves the Illuminati. The founder, Adam Weishaupt, was a law professor who despised the corruption of the church and the monarchy. He believed humanity was trapped in ignorance, and that only through reason and enlightenment could people be free. But if the Illuminati began with noble goals, why are they remembered as villains? Weishaupt gathered intellectuals, writers, and members of high society. They met in secrecy, swore oaths of loyalty, and built a network meant to quietly infiltrate institutions of power. Their aim was not open rebellion, but influence, to guide society from the shadows. Yet within a decade, the Bavarian government exposed them. The Illuminati were accused of conspiring against kings, plotting revolutions, and undermining religion itself. Officially, the order was banned and destroyed. But the question remains, did they really vanish, or did they survive in secret? Some believe they continued through Freemason lodges, shaping revolutions in France and even influencing America's founding fathers. Others claim the symbols they used, the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, are still visible today in our money, our politics, and even in the entertainment industry. The truth is elusive. Were the Illuminati visionaries who dreamed of freedom, or were they the architects of hidden control? This is where our journey begins. In the next chapter, we return to Bavaria, 1776, to uncover how the Illuminati truly began.
In the spring of 1776, a law professor named Adam Weishaupt sat in his study in Ingolstadt, Bavaria. He was young, ambitious, and deeply frustrated by the grip of the Catholic Church and the monarchy on every aspect of life. To Weishaupt, religion had become a tool of control, keeping the people ignorant while the powerful lived without limits. He dreamed of a society built on reason, knowledge, and equality, a place where free thought was not punished but celebrated. But he knew such ideas were dangerous. Speaking them openly could mean exile or worse. So instead of confronting power directly, he chose secrecy. On May 1, 1776, Weishaupt founded a society he called the Order of the Illuminati. At first it was small, just a handful of students and intellectuals. They gathered in secret, meeting in candlelit rooms, and devised a system of ranks, codes, and rituals. Members would shed their old identities and take on mysterious names. Weishaupt himself became Spartacus. Another early member took the name Ajax. To outsiders, these were ordinary men, but within the order, they were soldiers of enlightenment. The Illuminati's early mission was clear: to infiltrate institutions of power and quietly spread their ideals. They believed the best way to change the world was from the inside. Governments, churches, universities, all could be influenced if enough members gained positions of authority. But here's a question that puzzles historians and fuels conspiracy theories to this day. Was the Illuminati truly about enlightenment, or was it always about control? Weishaupt insisted that his society's goal was freedom from oppression, yet his methods were strict, even manipulative. He demanded absolute loyalty, secrecy, and obedience from his followers. By 1778, the Illuminati began to grow. They found allies within Freemason lodges, which gave them cover and a wider network. Through these connections, the society expanded far beyond Bavaria. Writers, judges, politicians, and noblemen joined their ranks. For a secret order barely 2 years old, their reach was astonishing. But with growth came danger. Whispers spread through Europe about a shadowy group working behind the scenes. The Illuminati, still in its infancy, was already becoming the subject of fear, suspicion, and legend. And so just within a few years of its creation, the question was no longer whether the Illuminati could change the world, but whether the world would allow them to exist at all.
The Illuminati were not created to worship darkness, as some claim today, but to bring light. At least, that was Adam Weishaupt's vision. He believed the world was trapped in superstition, fear, and blind obedience to authority. His society's mission was to spread reason, knowledge, and enlightenment. The order's official goals were strikingly ambitious: to end religious and political oppression, to promote equality, and to replace corruption with rational thought. Members dreamed of a future where monarchs no longer ruled by divine right, where priests could not dictate how people lived, and where all men could think freely without fear of punishment. But how could a small society achieve something so vast? The Illuminati adopted a method that was both brilliant and dangerous: gradual infiltration. Instead of fighting kings and priests openly, they would place their members in positions of influence. A judge here, a university professor there, a nobleman in another corner of society. Slowly, silently, the order would guide the world from within. Yet behind these noble ideals, there was also strict discipline. Weishaupt created a hierarchy of degrees similar to the Freemasons. Each new recruit started at the lowest rank, learning only fragments of the order's secrets. Advancement required loyalty, obedience, and total secrecy. Members did not even know the real identities of those above them. In Weishaupt's design, knowledge was power, and power was never shared equally. And this raises a question that continues to divide historians and conspiracy theorists alike. Did the Illuminati truly want freedom for mankind, or did they want control over mankind? To outsiders, their promises of enlightenment sounded pure. But inside the order, members were taught to obey their superiors without question. Some saw Weishaupt as a visionary, others as a manipulator. He claimed the order would liberate humanity from tyranny, yet his methods mirrored the very control he despised. Was he a genius strategist or simply another tyrant in disguise? By the early 1880s, the Illuminati's beliefs were spreading far beyond Bavaria. Dozens of intellectuals, politicians, and noblemen joined their ranks, inspired by the promise of a new world. But the more they grew, the more dangerous they became in the eyes of the powerful. Their beliefs of equality and freedom threatened kings and priests, and soon whispers of their existence would turn into accusations that shook Europe to its core.
By the early 1780s, the Illuminati were no longer a small circle of students in Bavaria. Through clever recruitment and alliances, they had spread across Europe. Their strategy was simple: find men of influence, charm them with the promise of enlightenment, and then bring them into the order. One of their greatest moves was infiltrating Freemasonry. Freemason lodges were already networks of wealthy, educated, and powerful men. By joining these lodges, the Illuminati gained access to princes, judges, bankers, and writers. Soon, entire Masonic lodges in Germany were quietly under Illuminati influence. Membership grew rapidly. Within a decade, the Illuminati had between 2,000 and 3,000 members scattered across Europe. This was not just a handful of rebels, it was a hidden army of thinkers, nobles, and politicians. Among them were professors, diplomats, poets, and even men close to royal courts. But what did they actually do? Some historians argue that their impact was limited, that they were more talk than action. Yet others point to how their ideals mirrored the great upheavals of the time. Ideas of freedom, equality, and reason were spreading like wildfire, and the Illuminati seemed to be everywhere those ideas appeared. And here's the question viewers always ask. Were the Illuminati directly responsible for revolutions, or were they simply part of a larger wave of Enlightenment thinking? Supporters of the conspiracy say the order's fingerprints can be seen in the French Revolution. The sudden fall of monarchy, the push for equality, the destruction of old traditions, these were exactly the goals the Illuminati had outlined. Could it have been coincidence, or was the French Revolution the first great success of the order? Others argue the Illuminati were too small and too young to have caused such massive change. They suggest that while the order may have spread ideas, it lacked the power to direct history on such a scale. Still, the whispers persisted that shadowy figures were working behind the scenes, guiding events like puppet masters. What is certain is that by the mid-1780s, the Illuminati were no longer invisible. Governments, churches, and even ordinary citizens were beginning to notice strange rumors of a secret society that sought to rule the world. And soon, those rumors would erupt into scandal, exposure, and the beginning of the Illuminati's greatest trial, the attempt to survive once the world knew their name.
By the mid-1780s, the Illuminati had grown too bold, too visible, and too threatening. What began as whispers of secret meetings soon reached the ears of princes, bishops, and kings. In Bavaria, where the order was born, the authorities could no longer ignore them. The Catholic Church and the Bavarian monarchy saw the Illuminati as a poison spreading through society. To them, this was not just a group of philosophers, it was a conspiracy against throne and altar. Accusations began to swirl. The Illuminati were plotting assassinations, planning uprisings, and corrupting the youth with dangerous ideas of freedom and equality. In 1784, the Bavarian government struck. An edict was issued outlawing all secret societies, including the Illuminati. At first, the order tried to continue in silence, disguising itself within Freemason lodges. But the crackdown only intensified. By 1785, police raided homes, seized documents, and arrested suspected members. Among the discoveries were letters, codes, and writings that revealed the inner workings of the Illuminati. For the authorities, this was proof of a dangerous conspiracy. For the public, it was fuel for fear. Newspapers printed sensational stories of a secret order trying to overthrow the world. Adam Weishaupt himself was forced to flee Bavaria, leaving behind the society he had built. Stripped of power, chased by authorities, and denounced as a traitor to church and state, he spent the rest of his life in exile. Officially, the Illuminati were declared dead. By 1787, the government boasted that the order had been completely destroyed. Leaders were scattered, meetings dissolved, documents seized. On the surface, it looked like the end of the Illuminati. But here's the mystery. If the order truly died in 1787, why do we still talk about it centuries later? Why do their symbols appear in modern culture? Why do conspiracy theories insist they survived, moving quietly behind the scenes of history? Some believe the Illuminati simply went deeper underground, blending into Freemasonry or other secret networks. Others argue that governments exaggerated their power, and what we think of as the Illuminati today is more myth than reality. Still, the legend did not fade. Instead, it grew. And soon, every revolution, every assassination, every unexplained event in Europe would be blamed on the invisible hand of the Illuminati.
When the Bavarian authorities crushed the Illuminati in the 1780s, many believed the society was finished. But whispers soon emerged that the order had not died. It had simply hidden itself inside another powerful brotherhood, the Freemasons. Freemasonry was already centuries old by this point, with lodges stretching across Europe and into the Americas. Masonic rituals were secretive, their members influential, and their symbols mysterious. To the public, it seemed a natural fit for the Illuminati to slip into this network. In truth, Adam Weishaupt had deliberately targeted Freemason lodges even before the crackdown. He saw them as fertile ground, elite men accustomed to secrecy and already organized in a hierarchical structure. By infiltrating Masonic lodges, the Illuminati gained cover and access to powerful recruits. Many Freemasons were drawn to the Illuminati's promises of enlightenment and change, and soon the lines between the two groups blurred. But this connection created lasting confusion. Was every Freemason also an Illuminati member? Most historians say no. The vast majority of Masons were never involved in Weishaupt's order. Yet because some lodges were heavily influenced, the two groups became linked in the public imagination. Here is where conspiracy theories flourish. Secret symbols such as the compass, the square, and the all-seeing eye appear in both traditions. The pyramid topped with an eye, now printed on the American dollar, became one of the most recognized proofs of Illuminati survival. Were these symbols truly Illuminati creations, or were they Masonic signs that the Illuminati adopted? The debate continues. The connection between the Illuminati and Freemasons also raises a deeper question. If the Illuminati were destroyed in Bavaria, did their ideas live on through Freemasonry? Supporters of the theory point to revolutions across Europe, suggesting that the hidden hand of Masonry, and by extension, the Illuminati, was guiding events. Whether fact or myth, this association ensured that the Illuminati legend did not fade. Instead, it expanded, attaching itself to every secret lodge, every strange symbol, every unexplained political upheaval. And soon, as Europe erupted in revolution, the Illuminati would be accused of their greatest crime yet, unleashing chaos on the continent itself.
In 1789, just a few years after the Illuminati were officially banned, France erupted into one of the bloodiest revolutions in history. The monarchy collapsed, nobles were dragged to the guillotine, and cries of liberty and equality filled the streets. To many observers at the time, this was not just coincidence. The ideals of the French Revolution, freedom from monarchy, the destruction of the church's power, and the rise of reason mirrored the stated goals of the Illuminati almost exactly. And so the rumors began. Was the Illuminati secretly behind the storming of the Bastille? Were they the hidden force guiding France into chaos? Theories spread quickly. In 1797, the Scottish professor John Robison published a book titled Proofs of a Conspiracy. In it, he argued that the French Revolution was orchestrated by Freemasons and Illuminati, working hand in hand to destroy religion and topple governments. His book was widely read and cemented the idea that the Illuminati were not dead, but alive, pulling strings behind the bloodshed. But here's the critical question. Did the Illuminati truly survive long enough to shape these events? Or did Robison and others simply blame them for revolutions that were already brewing from decades of inequality and oppression? Historians argue that while the Illuminati's ideals were similar to those of the revolution, the order itself had already been dismantled by the time Paris burned. Yet conspiracy theorists counter that even if Weishaupt's original group dissolved, their members may have carried the flame, influencing events through Freemason lodges and secret networks. The French Revolution became a turning point for the Illuminati legend. From this moment on, every major upheaval in Europe, whether in Germany, Italy, or even the United States, was tied to whispers of the order. To the public, they were no longer just a Bavarian curiosity. They were a ghostly presence, blamed for wars, assassinations, and revolutions across the Western world. And this created a pattern that still exists today. When society faces chaos, people often look for hidden hands behind it. For many, the Illuminati became the perfect explanation, a shadowy cabal of elites who benefited from disorder. Whether truth or myth, their name was now immortal. And as the legend grew, so too did the symbols and secret codes that people claimed were proof of their survival.
When people think of the Illuminati today, the first image that comes to mind is almost always the same: a pyramid topped with an all-seeing eye. It's a symbol that appears on the back of the US dollar bill, in countless movies, and even in music videos. But what does it actually mean, and how did it become linked to the Illuminati? The Eye of Providence, or the All-Seeing Eye, has roots much older than the Illuminati. In Christian art, it represented God watching over humanity. In Freemasonry, it symbolized enlightenment, knowledge, and the ever-present eye of truth. The pyramid beneath it, unfinished, was said to represent strength and the idea that human society was still being built. When America adopted the Great Seal in 1782, the symbol was included to represent divine guidance over the nation. But over time, conspiracy theorists began to ask, was it just coincidence that this symbol, so close to Masonic traditions, also aligned perfectly with Illuminati themes? The phrase "beneath the pyramid," Novus Ordo Seclorum, translates to a new order of the ages. To the founders of America, this meant the beginning of a new republic. But to those who suspect Illuminati influence, it sounds eerily like New World Order, the idea that a secret society was building a global system of control. And here's the question that people always ask. If the Illuminati were crushed in Bavaria, how did their supposed symbol end up on the most powerful nation's currency? Was it simply a matter of coincidence? Or was it evidence that members of the order had crossed the Atlantic and left their mark on the birth of America? Supporters of the theory point to the fact that many of America's founders like Benjamin Franklin and George Washington were Freemasons. If the Illuminati had infiltrated Masonry, then their influence might have reached into the creation of the United States itself. Skeptics argue the opposite, that the symbol was common in art and religion long before the Illuminati, and that its presence on the dollar bill has nothing to do with secret societies. Yet the mystery remains. Every time someone folds a dollar and sees the pyramid and the eye staring back, the legend of the Illuminati feels alive again. Symbols are powerful because they speak without words. Whether or not the Illuminati truly placed their mark on the dollar, the pyramid and the eye have become their eternal calling card, a reminder that the order may be watching, even from the shadows of everyday life.
If the Illuminati are a hidden society, how would we ever know they exist? Conspiracy theorists argue that the answer lies in symbols, hand signs, and subtle gestures shown in plain sight. To them, the world's elites are not hiding, they are flaunting their membership right in front of us. One of the most famous is the triangle hand sign, where a person holds their hands together to form a pyramid. Celebrities, politicians, and business leaders have been photographed making this shape, sometimes deliberately, sometimes by accident. To believers, this is the Illuminati signaling allegiance to the eye and the pyramid. Another gesture is the one-eye pose, where one eye is covered or emphasized while the other stares directly at the camera.
Musicians and actors often appear in photo shoots with this look, and conspiracy theorists insist it is a reference to the all-seeing eye, a hidden nod to their masters in the shadows. Even handshakes have been scrutinized. Freemasons were known for secret grips and signs, and some claim the Illuminati carried on this tradition. Photographs of presidents, prime ministers, and royals shaking hands in unusual ways are dissected online as proof of coded communication. But here's the question. Are these gestures intentional symbols of secret power or just coincidences blown out of proportion? Fashion poses, artistic photography, and even casual hand movements can easily be interpreted as something more sinister. Still, the belief persists that elites leave behind clues as if mocking the public with hidden truths. In music videos, pyramids appear in the background. In award shows, performers cover one eye or hold up a triangle sign. Some say it's just marketing, feeding off the myth for attention. Others insist it's a declaration that the Illuminati rule culture and entertainment, and they want us to know it. Whether fact or fantasy, these symbols fuel the mystery. Each gesture adds to the legend, making the Illuminati feel present in our world. And the more they appear, the more people ask, if these signs are everywhere, could they really be coincidences? Or are we being conditioned to accept a secret order hiding in plain sight?
For many who follow Illuminati lore, the story doesn't stop with secret handshakes or hidden symbols. It climbs higher into the idea of a single, unified system of global governance, often called the New World Order. According to this theory, the Illuminati's ultimate aim was never just influence in one court or one bank. It was to remake the world so no nation, church, or people could stand apart. So how does a shadowy cabal allegedly build a new world order? The theory paints a slow, patient strategy. First, shape ideas. Fund universities, publish think tank reports, and seed elite conversations that normalize transnational solutions to problems. Second, build institutions. Create international organizations, treaties, and financial mechanisms that centralize power above individual states. Third, control narratives. Use media, culture, and education to make global governance seem natural, even benevolent. Viewed this way, every international summit and every global treaty becomes, for believers, a step toward a single, managed world. Viewers always ask, is there any proof? The answer depends on what you accept as proof. Proponents point to real phenomena. Powerful banking families, multinational corporations that dwarf nation economies, sprawling NGOs, and global institutions that set rules across borders. They argue that concentration of economic and political power looks a lot like the scaffolding for a new world order. Critics reply that correlation is not causation. Globalization, interdependence, and international cooperation can be messy, but they also solve genuine transnational problems, trade, disease, climate change, without sinister intent. Another frequent question, wouldn't it be impossible to keep such a conspiracy secret? This is where the theory forks. Some say the planners use plausible deniability and layers of organizations so no single leak can expose the whole. Others argue the more plausible explanation is bureaucratic complexity, competing interests, and public scrutiny, not a single unified conspiracy. There are stories that feed the fear. Leaked memos interpreted as roadmaps, elite meetings where the world's wealthiest gather, and vague policy phrases like global governance turned into proof. Historians and investigative journalists counter with context. Powerful people have always met, and policy language is often about coordination, not domination. So, which is closer to reality? A clandestine plan for absolute control? Or a messy world where power concentrates by default and is fought over constantly? The truth probably sits somewhere between the extremes. Power does concentrate, elites do network, institutions do grow. But whether that amounts to an intentional, centuries-long program orchestrated by one secret cabal, that remains unproven and fiercely debated. As we move on, keep this question in mind. When you see global institutions and elite meetings, are you witnessing the architecture of a new world order or the natural evolution of an interconnected world trying imperfectly to handle problems that cross borders?
Whenever people discuss the Illuminati, one name seems to come up over and over again: the Rothschild family. For centuries, they've been one of the wealthiest banking dynasties in Europe, and because of their power, they've often been cast as villains in conspiracy theories. But how did the Rothschilds become so closely tied to the Illuminati legend? The story begins in the late 19th century, right when the Illuminati itself was supposedly active. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the family patriarch, built a financial empire by placing his 5 sons in key banking centers across Europe: Frankfurt, London, Paris, Vienna, and Naples. Together, they created a network that could move money faster than most governments, making them both indispensable and feared. Critics at the time accused the Rothschilds of secretly manipulating wars and revolutions for profit. For example, after the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, rumors spread that Nathan Rothschild had used insider information about Napoleon's defeat to seize control of the London stock market. Historians later debunked this story, but it stuck in the public imagination. To many, it looked like it was proof that the family was powerful enough to decide the fate of nations. So where does the Illuminati fit in? Some theorists believe Adam Weishaupt and Mayer Amschel Rothschild were connected, claiming Rothschild funded the Illuminati in its early days. Evidence for this is thin, but the overlap in timing fueled the suspicion. The Rothschilds' banking empire grew just as the Illuminati myth was spreading, and the two became permanently linked in popular imagination. Even today, when people talk about global elites or shadow bankers, the Rothschilds are often named as the financiers behind the New World Order. But this raises an important question. Are they truly evidence of an Illuminati conspiracy, or are they simply a wealthy family whose influence has been exaggerated into myth? Supporters of the theory argue that wealth equals control, and that families like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, or Morgans are exactly the kind of people who would benefit from a one-world system. Skeptics counter that blaming everything on a single family is too simplistic, ignoring the vast complexity of global finance and politics. The Rothschild story shows us something deeper: the human tendency to look for a face behind power. When people see immense influence, they often assume a hidden hand must be pulling the strings. Whether true or not, the Rothschild name has become shorthand for the idea of the Illuminati's financial arm.
If the Illuminati truly disappeared in the late 1780s, how did their legend survive for centuries? One answer often given is this: they merged with or infiltrated another powerful and much older secret society, the Freemasons. Freemasonry had already existed for hundreds of years by the time Adam Weishaupt created the Illuminati. With its lodges, rituals, oaths, and symbolism, Masonry was a natural environment for secretive organizations. In fact, many of the Illuminati's earliest recruits were Freemasons themselves. Weishaupt saw the lodges as fertile ground to spread his radical ideas under the cover of brotherhood and fraternity. Some historians believe this is why the Illuminati grew so quickly in their first decade. They didn't just recruit strangers, they tapped into a pre-existing network of educated, influential men who were already used to secrecy and ritual. This overlap blurred the lines between Masonry and Illuminism, and when governments cracked down, many couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. This confusion exploded in the decades that followed. Anti-Masonic movements in the 19th century often accused Masons of being a front for the Illuminati. Pamphlets, sermons, and political speeches claimed that behind the Masons' symbols of compasses and squares lurked the Illuminati's agenda for revolution and control. But here's the critical question: was there ever a true merger or just paranoia? Skeptics argue that while some Masons were sympathetic to Weishaupt's ideas, Masonry as a whole had no unified plan with the Illuminati. Conspiracy theorists, however, insist the Illuminati simply hid within Masonic lodges after their official ban, keeping their ideals alive under a different name. This overlap matters because it kept the Illuminati myth breathing. Freemasonry was global, stretching from Europe to the Americas, and so the Illuminati legend traveled with it. Every time someone suspected Masonic influence in politics, whispers of the Illuminati followed close behind. And it leads us to a haunting possibility. If the Illuminati did survive through Freemasonry, then perhaps they never truly died at all. Instead, they adapted, spreading quietly through a society that already prided itself on secrecy, influence, and brotherhood.
The question often asked is this: did the Illuminati have anything to do with the birth of the United States? On the surface, it might seem far-fetched. After all, the Illuminati were founded in Bavaria across the Atlantic and supposedly stamped out by the late 1780s. Yet the connections between their ideals and America's founding principles have fueled speculation for centuries. Let's start with the obvious overlap. Both the Illuminati and the American Revolution promoted Enlightenment values. Ideas like freedom from monarchy, the separation of church and state, and the empowerment of reason over tradition were central to both. It's no wonder that theorists believed the flames of independence in America may have been fanned by the same secret winds stirring in Europe. Then there's the matter of the Founding Fathers themselves. Several key figures, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere, and others, were known Freemasons. If the Illuminati truly merged or influenced Masonic lodges, could their ideas have reached the heart of the American Revolution? The suspicion grows deeper when we look at symbols. The Great Seal of the United States, adopted in 1782, features the unfinished pyramid with the Eye of Providence, along with the Latin phrase, Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order of the ages. For conspiracy theorists, this is not simply patriotic imagery, it's a signature of Illuminati ideals etched into the very foundation of America. But what did Washington himself say? Interestingly, in a letter from 1798, George Washington wrote about concerns that the Illuminati and Jacobin influence had spread in America. While he did not claim they had taken over, he admitted that their presence was being debated. This statement alone has fueled centuries of speculation. Of course, historians remind us that Enlightenment ideas were widespread in the 18th century, and America's Revolution was influenced by thinkers like Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau, not necessarily by a secret Bavarian order. The overlap may be more about shared philosophy than hidden infiltration. Still, the theory persists that the Illuminati saw the American Revolution as the perfect experiment for their vision of a new society, a place where monarchy was abolished, religion had less control, and a new system of governance could emerge. Whether or not the Illuminati ever set foot in Philadelphia or signed the Declaration of Independence, their spirit, or at least their legend, became inseparably tied to the birth of a nation that would go on to dominate the world stage.
Whenever history takes a sudden, violent turn, people search for hidden hands guiding the event. Assassinations, those shocking moments when leaders fall to bullets or blades, are some of the most fertile ground for Illuminati theories. Could these killings have been orchestrated not by lone actors, but by a secret society shaping the future? Take the case of President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. Officially, he was murdered by John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer. But alternative theories suggest Booth was part of a larger network with hidden backers. Why would the Illuminati want Lincoln dead? Some say because he opposed centralized banking systems, threatening financial powers that thrived in secrecy. Fast forward to 1963, the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Few events have spawned more conspiracy theories. The Warren Commission named Lee Harvey Oswald as the lone gunman, but skeptics point to inconsistencies in the evidence, the infamous magic bullet, and eyewitness testimonies that don't align. Illuminati theories claim Kennedy was targeted for resisting secret agendas, whether his push against clandestine intelligence operations, his warnings about secret societies, or his rumored plan to diminish the Federal Reserve's influence. Was he silenced to protect an invisible order? Other assassinations are tied into the same narrative. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, whose death triggered World War I, Martin Luther King Jr., who challenged entrenched systems of power and inequality, even Princess Diana, whose tragic 1997 car crash has been reinterpreted as a planned removal by forces unhappy with her independence. Critics argue these connections are circumstantial. History is messy, and assassinations are often explained by politics, fanaticism, or chance. But the pattern remains. Whenever a leader is struck down, whispers of the Illuminati follow. And here's the deeper point. Assassinations change history in ways that benefit those already in power. Wars erupt, nations realign, fear spreads, and elites profit. Whether or not the Illuminati ordered these deaths, the idea persists because each tragedy seems to serve the interests of those who control the system. So the question is, are we looking at the randomness of violence or the fingerprints of an invisible order that uses assassination as a tool to steer the world's destiny?
The entertainment industry is the theater of modern myth-making. It shapes how millions think, what they value, and what becomes cool. So it's no surprise that when people look for signs of a hidden order, they point to music videos, red carpet poses, and the recurring imagery in pop culture. If you wanted to normalize ideas, influence emotions, or even test how people react to symbols, we're better than film, music, and television. Conspiracy believers see a pattern everywhere. They point to music videos filled with pyramids, single-eye poses, or ritual-like ceremonies. They note how award shows stage tableaux that look almost ceremonial, how elite guests sit in exclusive boxes, and how fashion cycles push certain images until they feel natural. To many viewers, these are not accidents. They are a coded language, a way for an elite network to signal its reach and to introduce symbolic narratives into the cultural bloodstream. But two questions always come up. Are these artists members of a secret society? And why would artists participate? The answers are messy. Some artists may flirt with occult imagery because it's provocative and sells records. Controversy equals attention. Others use symbols to create mystique or to comment ironically on fame itself. The fashion world borrows from religious and esoteric iconography because it is visually powerful, not because designers are part of a centuries-old cabal. There are also structural reasons why the industry appears centralized.
A handful of major record labels, film studios, and agencies control enormous resources, distribution networks, marketing budgets, and access to mass audiences. That concentration of power makes it easy to suspect coordination. When the same motifs recur, it's tempting to infer a single puppet master rather than overlapping commercial incentives and creative imitation. Another layer feeds the myth. Stories of initiation and signing contracts that sell the soul. These are usually theatrical metaphors for the harsh realities of the business. Exploitative contracts, image-making by executives, and the pressure to conform to trends. The idea that a young star sells out to gain fame is true in spirit, but it's different from the idea of a secret society literally recruiting celebrities into a global conspiracy. Then there's the feedback loop. Once the idea that the industry is owned by a secret order becomes popular, artists and marketers sometimes lean into it because it's good publicity. A singer making a one-eye pose can be read as ironic wink, earned myth, or deliberate signaling, and every interpretation amplifies the myth itself. So what should a skeptical viewer conclude? The entertainment industry unquestionably concentrates cultural power and can propagate symbols widely and quickly. It contains gatekeepers who decide which images and narratives reach us. But the leap from concentrated influence to organized global conspiracy run by the Illuminati requires evidence that does not exist in public record. What's real are the structural incentives, money, attention, and branding that makes symbolic repetition inevitable. If you're watching a pop video and think you see an emblem of control, ask two things. Could this be a creative choice or marketing ploy? And who profits from the imagery becoming part of the culture? Often the answer points to companies and careers, not to shadowy ritual masters. That doesn't make the images harmless. Symbols shape belief, but it grounds the mystery in human motives we can understand. Fame, profit, shock, and the endless search for meaning in what we watch.
When the world erupted into global conflict in the 20th century, it wasn't long before the Illuminati were named as hidden instigators. After all, wars reshape borders, topple empires, and create new systems of power, exactly the kinds of transformations conspiracy theorists believe serve a secret agenda. World War I is often tied to this theory. The official story is that the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered a chain of alliances spiraling into war, but some argue the conflict was orchestrated to destroy old monarchies and pave the way for new international systems. The League of Nations, founded after the war, is pointed to as a step towards centralized global governance, something theorists believe the Illuminati had always wanted. Then came World War II, an even more devastating conflict. The rise of fascism, the Holocaust, and the eventual use of atomic bombs created shockwaves across the globe. Out of its ashes came the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, powerful organizations with authority that stretched across borders. To many, this looked like the perfect opportunity for hidden elites to consolidate control under the guise of peace and reconstruction. But here's the question. Did the Illuminati really cause these wars, or did they simply benefit from them? Wars often centralize power, create debt, and shift global alliances, outcomes that powerful interests, whether banking dynasties or political elites, have always exploited. Whether or not there's a guiding hand, the aftermath of both wars undeniably moved the world closer to international systems of control. Stories circulate that certain financiers or industrialists had stakes in both sides of the wars, profiting no matter the outcome. Some even argue that global conflicts were engineered to weaken nations, so no single country could dominate independently. Instead, all would need to cooperate under new structures. Skeptics remind us that history is filled with complex causes, nationalism, imperialism, economic crises, and political mistakes. To them, blaming everything on the Illuminati oversimplifies events that had many drivers. Yet to believers, the pattern is too neat to ignore. Chaos, then order,
And each time, more centralized institutions rise from the ruins. So we're left with a haunting thought. If wars bring nations to their knees and give birth to new world systems, are they merely accidents of history or deliberate steps in a hidden plan?
If wars are the hammer that reshapes nations, financial crises are the invisible lever that shifts power quietly. Throughout history, economic collapses have devastated ordinary people while concentrating wealth in the hands of a few. It's no surprise then that many see the Illuminati's hand in these events. Take the Great Depression of 1929. Stock markets crashed, banks failed, unemployment soared, and millions lost everything. While most historians point to speculation, weak regulations, and panic selling, conspiracy theorists argue that it was engineered. Why? Because after the crash, centralized banking powers like the Federal Reserve gained greater control, and wealthy elites bought up assets at bargain prices. To believers, this looked like a carefully staged transfer of wealth. The pattern, they say, repeats again and again. The 2008 global financial crisis followed a similar script. Reckless banking practices led to collapse, governments bailed out massive corporations, and ordinary people were left with debt, unemployment, and foreclosure. Who benefited? The very institutions deemed too big to fail. Was this incompetence or a planned consolidation of economic power? The theory goes even deeper, that financial panics, inflation, and debt cycles are not just accidents, but tools of control. By keeping nations in debt, global elites can dictate policy. By triggering collapses, they can push for new systems, from centralized banks to digital currencies that tighten their grip. Viewers often ask, but is there proof? The answer depends on perspective. There are undeniable cases where insiders profited enormously during crashes, and where new policies expanded the power of financial institutions. Yet proving deliberate coordination on a global scale is far harder. Economies are complex, and mistakes often look like conspiracies when viewed from the ruins. Still, the fear persists because the outcomes seem always to benefit the powerful. Ordinary people lose jobs, savings, and homes, while elites emerge stronger. That imbalance feeds the belief that someone must be pulling the strings. And here's the chilling possibility. Even if no single group engineers crises, the structure of global finance is designed so that collapses enrich the top and crush the bottom. To conspiracy believers, that's not an accident. It's the Illuminati's blueprint for control.
As the world moved from ink to electricity, the tools of influence changed. If secret orders wanted power in the 18th century, the 21st century equivalent is code, networks, and surveillance. For many, the rise of digital technology looks like the perfect modern instrument for centralized control. And so the Illuminati narrative was updated to include our phones, social media, and the invisible architecture of the internet. Tech gives extraordinary reach. Algorithms decide what millions see every day. Platforms shape opinion by amplifying certain voices and silencing others. Data brokers assemble profiles on entire populations. Conspiracy theorists argue that a group with access to these levers could steer elections, manufacture consent, and quietly nudge societies toward policies that concentrate power. It's no longer just about secret meetings in candlelit rooms. It's about servers, backdoors, and targeted persuasion. People ask, could tech companies be part of a conspiracy? The reality is more complicated. Major tech firms are run by billionaires with huge influence, and they often cooperate with governments on censorship, surveillance, or data sharing.
There are documented cases of companies complying with state requests, building common platforms with intelligence agencies, or selling tools that can be used for repression. Those facts feed the suspicion that something coordinated and sinister could be happening behind the scenes. Then there's the rise of surveillance technology. Facial recognition, geolocation tracking, and ubiquitous CCTV fused with AI. In authoritarian contexts, these tools have been deployed to monitor dissent and control populations. Even in democracies, data collection and targeted advertising have reshaped civic life, often without full public awareness or consent. For many viewers, that looks like the scaffolding of a modern New World Order. Transparency for the many, opacity for those in power. Another hot topic is digital money. Central bank digital currencies, cashless societies, and tightly regulated payment rails raise legitimate questions. Who controls the ledger, and what happens if access can be revoked at will? Critics worry about the potential for social control through programmable money, a dystopian scenario where behavior is incentivized or punished via one's digital wallet. To conspiracy believers, such technologies are irresistible proof that elites are building mechanisms to govern behavior down to the last purchase. Yet, skeptics urge nuance. Technology is a tool. It amplifies existing political and economic forces, but does not by itself prove a single, unified conspiracy. Companies generally act in self-interest. Growth, ad revenue, market share, governments pursue security and stability. These incentives can align to produce outcomes that look coordinated, even when no secret cabal orchestrates them. Stories that circulate online, whistleblowers, leaked memos, or suspicious pilot projects intensify fear. Real abuses have happened, and some programs have alarming privacy implications. That's why debates about regulation, transparency, and oversight matter more than ever. They are the democratic antidote to surveillance carried out in the shadows. So ask yourself while watching, when you see targeted ads, viral disinformation, or a city full of cameras, are you witnessing the work of an Illuminati-style cabal, or are you seeing the byproduct of powerful technologies deployed within a world of competing interests? The answer is both warning and instruction. Technology can enable centralized control if left unchecked, which makes public scrutiny, law, and civic engagement the most effective defenses against any secretive consolidation of power.
Every investigation into the Illuminati eventually hits the same fork in the road. Dazzling conspiracy narratives on one side, sober historical scholarship on the other. Both matter because the story people tell says as much about our fears and hopes as any buried document. In this part, we ask the hard questions and try to separate what is likely from what is sensational. Start with the facts we can verify. Adam Weishaupt founded a secret society in Bavaria in 1776. It grew, it kept secrets, it used symbols and rituals, and it was outlawed in the 1780s. That is history. The rest, survival, global conspiracies, puppet masters of modern events, moves quickly from documented record into interpretation, inference, and sometimes invention. Why do conspiracy theories form around groups like the Illuminati? There are clear psychological and social reasons. Humans prefer patterns to chaos. We look for causes when something terrible or inexplicable happens. Powerful, opaque institutions create fertile ground for suspicion. When elites meet in private, when financial collapses concentrate wealth, when wars reshape borders, people search for an explanation that fits the scale of what they feel has been lost. The Illuminati is a tidy explanation, a single villain that makes sense of complexity. But tidy explanations come with risks. They can simplify history, erase competing causes, and scapegoat real people for systemic problems. Revolutions, pandemics, economic collapses, and assassinations usually have multiple messy causes: ideology, structural inequality, miscalculation, greed, fear. To attribute them all to one hidden cabal requires leaps that evidence rarely supports. Let's test a few common claims against what we know. Claim: the Illuminati orchestrated the French Revolution and later world events. Reality check: Enlightenment ideas circulated widely. Economic crisis and political incompetence helped trigger the revolution. Some individuals and lodges may have promoted radicalism, but a centrally commanded Bavarian-run conspiracy directing the entire revolution is implausible based on existing archives. Claim: the symbols, eye, pyramid, hand signs, prove modern Illuminati influence. Reality check: symbols travel and are repurposed. The Eye of Providence predates Weishaupt. Masonic symbolism and classical imagery were common in art and statecraft. Repetition of motifs in pop culture says more about memetics and marketing than secret handbooks. Claim: global institutions and financial dynasties are evidence of a planned New World Order. Reality check: powerful interests do network and benefit from stability and rules that favor them. That is not the same as a coordinated, centuries-long conspiracy with a single plan. Power concentrates via institutions, legal frameworks, and market forces, not necessarily via a single mastermind. At the same time, skepticism should not become naivete. There are real problems: opacity in finance, unaccountable intelligence operations, corporate capture of policy, and technologies that enable surveillance. Those are empirical issues demanding investigation and reform, not mythical explanations. Treat whistleblowers, documents, and anomalies seriously, but demand corroboration, context, and reproducible evidence. People watching this series will ask, so which is it? Are they real or not? The honest answer is layered. The historical Illuminati did exist and had ambitions. Their direct power was limited and their formal organization suppressed. The mythic Illuminati, an all-powerful cabal running history, is not supported by the best archival evidence. Yet the broader truth that elites network, that symbols and secrecy can obscure accountability, and that centralized power can be abused, that truth is obvious and urgent. In short, there is less mystery in terms of a single immortal conspiracy, and more cause for vigilance about how power operates. Understanding the difference matters because it changes what we do. If you believe in a single secret cabal, you might retreat into suspicion. If you accept that power aggregates through institutions and incentives, you see clear levers for change: transparency, democratic oversight, independent journalism, and legal constraint.
The Illuminati began as a small, radical experiment in secrecy and ideas, yet its name grew until it became a cultural echo chamber for every fear about hidden power. To understand their legacy, we must look at more than manuscripts and rumors. We must read the imprint they left on our politics, our art, and the way we tell stories about power. Why does the Illuminati legend persist? Part of the answer is psychological. Humans crave explanations that simplify complexity. When institutions fail, markets crash, or leaders betray trust, the mind looks for an agent, someone to blame. A secret society is a tidy villain that explains suffering in moral terms. It lets people make sense of unequal outcomes by telling a story. The powerful conspire, the public is duped. That story is emotionally satisfying,
even when it's not fully true. Culturally, the Illuminati became a motif, from Gothic novels to pulp pamphlets, from political tracts to pop songs. The idea of a hidden brotherhood appears again and again because it's useful. It's a symbol for corruption, for forbidden knowledge, and for elite hypocrisy. Writers and filmmakers use the Illuminati as shorthand. Want to dramatize secret influence? Invoke that name, and viewers instantly understand the stakes. Over time, fiction bled into rumor, rumor into evidence, and the line between history and myth blurred. There's also a structural legacy. The real-world phenomena that feed the myth are very real. Elite networking, concentrated wealth, opaque institutions, lobbying, and the revolving door between government and industry. These dynamics create real outcomes that look, to many, like orchestration. That is the Illuminati's most useful legacy. Not that a single group controls everything, but that power does, in fact, aggregate in ways that are often invisible and unaccountable. People watching this series ask practical questions. How can I tell real conspiracy from rhetoric? What sources can be trusted? If power concentrates, what can ordinary people do? The short answers are these. Look for corroboration, prefer primary documents and reputable scholarship over sensational pamphlets, and demand transparency from institutions. Voting, supporting independent journalism, advocating for financial and political transparency, and pushing for technology and data rights are concrete ways to reduce the opacity that breeds myth. Another common question: is the Illuminati idea harmless folklore or dangerous? It can be both. As folklore, it's compelling and entertaining. As a political lens, it can be dangerous when it displaces rigorous analysis, scapegoats minorities, or fuels nihilism. Blind belief in a single conspiratorial explanation can numb civic engagement. People stop looking for practical levers of change because they assume everything is secretly rigged. There are also untold human stories in the legacy. Ex-members who recanted, whistleblowers ignored, and idealists who believed secrecy was the only path to reform. Those narratives remind us that secrecy has real costs. When politics happens behind closed doors, mistakes are made and abuses are covered. The lesson is simple. Secrecy can protect privacy and safety, but it can also shield wrongdoing. The balance matters. Finally, the Illuminati's legacy is a challenge. It asks us to be skeptical without becoming cynical, to seek evidence without succumbing to paranoia, and to transform fear into action. If the specter of a hidden order motivates us to demand more accountable institutions, then the story has served a use beyond melodrama. If it instead encourages resignation, then it becomes a tool that benefits the very elites people suspect. So what remains after 30 parts of inquiry? Not a tidy revelation of a global cabal, but a sober map of how ideas, secrecy, symbols, and concentrated power interact. The Illuminati exist in history as a real secret society, in culture as an enduring myth, and in politics as a mirror reflecting the opacity of elite power. Understanding those three forms, archive, allegory, and architecture, is the most important legacy they left us. If you walk away with anything, let it be this: look at power with curiosity and rigor. Ask who benefits from a given outcome, but demand evidence before you name the culprit. Use outrage as fuel for reform, not as surrender to myth. In that way, the story of the Illuminati stops being just a shadow tale and becomes a starting point for building a more transparent world.
Even after we trace the history, examine the myths, and separate fact from fiction, the Illuminati story refuses to end. That's because countless strange tales keep surfacing, events, rumors, and coincidences that feel too eerie to dismiss. These stories, whether true,
exaggerated or misunderstood, are part of why people stay fascinated. One recurring theme is the idea that great tragedies are orchestrated. Take the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. Some researchers claim certain wealthy industrialists opposed to the creation of the U.S. Federal Reserve were on board, and that their deaths conveniently removed obstacles to centralized banking power. While historians point out the role of human error, weather, and flawed engineering, conspiracy circles see a shadowy hand ensuring the birth of modern finance. Another story concerns sudden deaths of politicians and cultural icons. When leaders are assassinated, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, or more recently attempts on modern figures, whispers often follow. Was this a lone actor or a cover for something deeper? JFK's assassination especially became ground zero for Illuminati speculation. The magic bullet, the conflicting witness accounts, the sealed government files, all created fertile ground for the belief that shadow powers silenced a president who threatened their interests. Cultural events, too, are woven into Illuminati lore. Consider major global ceremonies, Olympic openings, Super Bowl halftime shows, royal weddings. Fans obsess over the symbols displayed: triangles, glowing eyes, fire rituals. For some, these are merely artistic flourishes. For others, they are public demonstrations of allegiance hidden in plain sight. Whether it's Beyoncé forming a triangle with her hands or an elaborate pyramid stage design, audiences read them as messages to those in the know. There are also the stranger, smaller events, like the disappearance of entire villages in folklore, or unexplained experiments such as the Philadelphia experiment, where a U.S. Navy ship supposedly vanished and reappeared, sparking theories of time manipulation. While most historians dismiss these tales as exaggerations or hoaxes, they feed the suspicion that science and power are being pushed in directions the public isn't allowed to see. An especially enduring rumor is about famous figures faking their deaths under Illuminati influence. Elvis Presley, Tupac Shakur, Michael Jackson. Fans swear these icons either tried to escape control or were silenced for resisting. Every sighting, every cryptic lyric or gesture fuels the notion of an underground network managing not just careers, but life itself. Of course, many of these stories crumble under scrutiny, but here's the key point. It's not the evidence alone that keeps them alive, it's the pattern they suggest. People connect dots, whether or not the dots were ever meant to align. That feeling of hidden coordination is stronger than documents or archives. So the real question isn't only, did the Illuminati cause these events, but also, why do we reach for that explanation when confronted with mystery? These stories tell us less about a secret order and more about the deep human suspicion that powerful forces always act behind the curtain.
Throughout history, wars have rarely been explained by a single cause. Yet, whenever great conflicts erupt, whispers of the Illuminati rise to the surface. People see patterns in the chaos, believing that behind generals and kings stood a shadow council, guiding events for their own gain. Take the Napoleonic Wars. Some 19th century pamphlets claimed Napoleon himself was a pawn of secret societies, trained in the radical ideas of the Enlightenment that groups like the Illuminati promoted. Others said the Illuminati opposed him, fearing that a single emperor would overshadow their agenda. Both claims cannot be true, but the mere fact that such rumors spread shows how quickly the Illuminati became a catch-all explanation for upheaval. Fast forward to the 20th century. World War I was so catastrophic, with alliances dragging entire nations into destruction, that conspiracy theories blossomed. Bankers, international elites, and hidden societies were accused of manipulating the war to profit from arms and debt. Many pointed to the Rothschild banking family, often tied to Illuminati myths, as proof of a financial cabal pulling strings. Then came World War II. Adolf Hitler himself railed against secret societies, accusing them of undermining Germany. Ironically, Nazi propaganda both demonized Illuminati-like conspiracies and created one of the most destructive real conspiracies in history. On the other side, Allied soldiers circulated leaflets suggesting that fascist leaders were puppets of unseen powers. In both camps, the idea of a secret manipulator was a weapon, a way to simplify the enemy into something sinister and hidden. The Cold War added another chapter. The rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union, the nuclear arms race, the proxy wars, all felt too orchestrated to be accidental. People began to suspect that both sides were secretly controlled by the same higher power, playing out a staged rivalry to frighten the masses into accepting centralized military and economic power. Books and underground radio shows in the 1960s and 70s popularized this theory, claiming the Illuminati orchestrated a managed conflict to bring about global governance. Propaganda was the fuel. Posters, radio broadcasts, and later television carried not just patriotism, but hidden imagery that conspiracy believers swore revealed secret loyalties. For example, triangular insignias in military badges or the use of the all-seeing eye in Cold War posters were interpreted as deliberate Illuminati symbols. Governments, meanwhile, exploited conspiracy fears by accusing enemies of being under the sway of hidden cabals. Why does war breed Illuminati theories? Because war feels too destructive, too costly to be explained by bad leadership alone. People ask, how could millions die just because of a few mistakes? Surely someone wanted it this way. That suspicion turns chaos into intention, and intention into conspiracy. Even today, modern conflicts in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, or beyond are often framed by conspiracy theorists as orchestrated by global elites. Wars over resources, influence, or ideology are recast as staged steps toward a new world order. But the truth is layered. Yes, elites often benefit from war. Yes, propaganda is crafted in secret rooms. Yes, powerful interests push nations toward conflict for gain. But that does not necessarily prove a unified, centuries-old Illuminati guiding every battle. It does prove, however, that secrecy and propaganda are as much weapons as bullets or bombs.
One of the reasons the Illuminati myth refuses to die is because it constantly attaches itself to powerful or influential people. Whenever a leader rises, whenever a star shines too brightly, suspicions emerge. Are they part of it? Take US presidents. George Washington himself once wrote about the Illuminati in letters, acknowledging its existence in Europe while warning that its influence in America was exaggerated. Yet centuries later, nearly every American president has been accused of membership. From Thomas Jefferson, who admired Enlightenment ideas, to modern leaders like Barack Obama or Donald Trump, conspiracy theorists claim their power must be tied to secret societies. Every hand gesture, every unusual phrase, every hidden symbol on official seals becomes proof in the eyes of believers. In the world of finance, the Rothschild family became the central target. Their vast banking empire, international connections, and secrecy made them the perfect symbol of Illuminati influence. Caricatures portrayed them as puppet masters of kings and parliaments, even though much of their power came simply from pioneering modern finance. Still, their name remains synonymous with conspiracy lore. Then there are revolutionaries. Figures like Vladimir Lenin, Fidel Castro, and even Che Guevara were accused of Illuminati ties. Why? Because they shook the world order. Any sudden social shift, whether communist, capitalist, or nationalist, gets reframed as part of a hidden plan. The logic goes, if history changes this dramatically, someone must have designed it. Pop culture amplifies this. Musicians like Jay-Z, Beyoncé, Rihanna, and Kanye West are frequently accused of flaunting Illuminati imagery. Triangles formed with their hands, one eye covered in music videos, lyrics about power and rebirth all become symbols of secret allegiance to the Brotherhood. For fans, these are just artistic flourishes. For conspiracy watchers, they are public pledges of loyalty to the Brotherhood. Even scientists and thinkers haven't been spared. Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Stephen Hawking, their breakthroughs were so advanced that some claim they tapped into forbidden knowledge shared only within secret societies. The suspicion is that no one could be that brilliant alone. There must be hidden guidance. Why do people attach the Illuminati label to the famous? Because fame itself feels mysterious. Ordinary people project onto leaders and stars the belief that their success is unnatural, that hidden forces pave the way. It's easier to believe a singer rose to superstardom because of secret rituals than because of talent, timing, and relentless work. Similarly, it feels more plausible that presidents are chosen by an invisible council than by messy elections full of money, campaigning, and luck. This suspicion feeds both fascination and fear. For some, believing that stars or leaders are in the Illuminati makes them more exciting, like watching a real-life mystery unfold. For others, it makes them dangerous, proof that the world is manipulated from the top down. Yet here's the twist. The accused often lean into it. Some artists deliberately use Illuminati imagery to provoke curiosity and sell records. Some leaders enjoy the aura of mystery. The myth becomes part of the brand, feeding the very story it claims to expose.
Where do the Illuminati meet? If they exist in the shadows, they must have shadows to hide in. Over the centuries, conspiracy lore has mapped a geography of power, secret chambers, hidden vaults, and mysterious landmarks said to be centers of influence. The most famous is probably the Bohemian Grove in California. Each summer, some of the world's most powerful men, politicians, CEOs, bankers, gather in a redwood forest to perform strange rituals, including a symbolic cremation of care. For some, it's just an eccentric retreat. For conspiracy theorists, it's proof of an Illuminati-style cult where the elite reenact ancient rites before making decisions that affect the world. Then there's the Denver International Airport. Built in the 1990s, its bizarre murals, underground tunnels, and giant blue demon horse sculpture have fueled speculation. The airport's dedication stone bears a Masonic symbol and mentions a mysterious New World Airport Commission. To believers, this is no mere hub for planes. It's a fortress, a bunker, or even a headquarters for the New World Order. Europe has its share of legends. The Rothschild mansions in France are often described as venues for secret gatherings. The Château de Ferrières, for instance, hosted lavish masked balls that conspiracy theorists reimagined as Illuminati rituals. Meanwhile, the Vatican's labyrinth of archives is said to conceal forbidden documents, proving the society's hand in shaping history. In Washington, D.C., the very design of the city fuels suspicion. The street layout forms pentagrams and triangles when viewed from above. The obelisk of the Washington Monument, the pyramid atop the Capitol Dome, and the Eye of Providence on the dollar bill all become pieces of an architectural puzzle pointing to Illuminati influence. Some argue that the city itself is an open-air temple to hidden power. Other locations drift between myth and fact. Underground bases in the Swiss Alps, black sites hidden in deserts, and rumored chambers beneath the British Parliament are whispered about in forums and books. Even natural wonders like Mount Shasta in California or caves beneath the Himalayas are reimagined as gateways to hidden centers of power. What do these sites have in common? Secrecy, restricted access, strange symbols. They allow the imagination to run wild. A locked door in a powerful place almost demands speculation.
And when the speculation begins, the Illuminati are never far behind. Some ask, if the Illuminati are so secret, why leave clues at all? Believers say it's arrogance, a show of power hiding in plain sight. Skeptics counter, the symbols are coincidental, the rituals theatrical, the architecture simply artistic. But the mystique lingers because humans instinctively assign meaning to patterns.
Every secret society has its glue, rituals, codes, and symbols that create unity and secrecy. For the Illuminati, the stories of their practices are as captivating as their supposed power. Some are grounded in history, others in rumor, but all of them fuel the sense that this group is no ordinary club. In Adam Weishaupt's original Bavarian Illuminati, rituals were relatively modest. Initiates swore oaths of secrecy, pledged loyalty to the order, and were given new mystical names inspired by classical figures. They met in candlelit rooms, exchanged coded messages, and used layered ranks, novices, minervals, and illuminated minors, each stage revealing more secrets. The structure resembled other Enlightenment-era fraternities, especially Freemasonry, which the Illuminati deliberately infiltrated. But over time, myths painted a far darker picture. Stories spread of bizarre initiation rites. Candidates blindfolded, led through underground chambers, asked to reveal their deepest secrets while surrounded by symbols of death and rebirth. In some tales, initiates stood before skeletons or coffins, a reminder that loyalty was for life or beyond it. Whether true or exaggerated, these stories tapped into the universal fear of forbidden knowledge. The symbols became equally infamous. The all-seeing eye, the unfinished pyramid, the owl of Minerva, all allegedly signified wisdom, vigilance, and hidden power. Handshakes, gestures, and even the way members posed in portraits were said to be coded signals of affiliation. In modern pop culture, covering one eye or making a triangle with the hands is read by believers as proof of Illuminati ties. Artists often play with these images, half as performance, half as provocation. Then there are the rituals of power said to bind members. Some claim the Illuminati conduct mock sacrifices, reenact ancient mysteries, or summon metaphysical forces. Leaked accounts from places like Bohemian Grove or elite banquets are interpreted as echoes of these rites. The famous owl ceremony at Bohemian Grove, for example, is often cited as an Illuminati ritual dressed up as harmless theater. The purpose of such practices, if they exist, is control, an initiation that demands vulnerability, a confession, a frightening oath, or participation in taboo acts creates bonds of secrecy. Members become complicit, ensuring loyalty through shared experience. This is not unique to the Illuminati. Secret societies across cultures have used the same techniques. But with the Illuminati, the idea is magnified by the scale of their alleged influence. Skeptics argue that most of this is folklore, borrowed from Freemasonry, Gothic fiction, or sensationalist pamphlets from the 18th and 19th centuries. And yet, even if the wildest stories aren't factual, they shape the way people view power. Rituals, after all, don't need to be real to be effective as myth. They remind us that secrecy itself is ritualistic. Every locked door, every coded phrase, and every whispered oath is a performance of hidden truth.
If the Bavarian Illuminati died out in the 1780s, how is it that their name is still on everyone's lips today? The answer lies in culture. Over 2 centuries, the Illuminati stopped being just a historical society and became a mythological brand, one that filmmakers, musicians, and writers constantly recycle. Hollywood has been one of the biggest engines of this transformation. Films like Eyes Wide Shut, National Treasure, and Angels and Demons depict shadowy elites, hidden symbols, and secret rituals. Even when the word Illuminati isn't used directly, the imagery is familiar. Masked gatherings, powerful men plotting in smoke-filled rooms, ancient symbols carved into monuments. Movies don't just reflect conspiracy culture. They shape it, feeding audiences with striking visuals that conspiracy theorists later analyze as clues. Music videos are perhaps the most fertile ground for modern Illuminati lore. Jay-Z flashing the diamond hand sign, Beyoncé covering one eye, Lady Gaga's cryptic imagery, Rihanna's pyramid stages. These all fuel speculation. Some argue that these artists deliberately borrow Illuminati symbolism to provoke curiosity, knowing it sparks free publicity. In fact, some stars openly joke about it. Jay-Z once said, "The Illuminati is real and I am their leader," poking fun at the obsession. Yet the jokes only deepen suspicion for some fans. Why joke unless there's truth behind it? Video games, too, have kept the legend alive. Titles like Deus Ex, Assassin's Creed, and Illuminati New World Order weave secret societies into their core storylines, letting players feel like insiders fighting or serving hidden powers. These stories tap into the thrill of forbidden knowledge, a fantasy of discovering the truth behind the curtain. Memes and internet culture have given the Illuminati a second life. The famous Illuminati Confirmed meme, complete with green triangles and ominous music, turned conspiracy into comedy. But jokes spread ideas just as effectively as serious books. A teenager laughing at a meme may still end up Googling the Eye of Providence, stumbling into deeper theories. So why does pop culture love the Illuminati? Because secrecy sells, mystery attracts, and symbols are endlessly reusable. An eye, a pyramid, a shadowy group pulling strings, these can be adapted into horror, comedy, thriller, or music, resonating across generations. Some people watching will ask, if it's all a joke, why do artists and filmmakers use the symbols so often? That's the paradox. On one hand, it's marketing and aesthetics. Strange imagery catches attention. On the other, culture reflects real anxieties. The constant return to Illuminati themes reveals a deep cultural suspicion that power is hidden and we aren't told the whole truth. The line between entertainment and belief blurs. A movie inspires a conspiracy video. A meme fuels a podcast. A pop star's joke becomes evidence. And so the Illuminati endure, less as a secret society, but more as a living myth that entertainment and the internet refuse to let die.
The Illuminati, as a modern myth, would likely have faded into obscurity if not for the internet. What used to be whispered in pamphlets or secret gatherings now spreads in seconds across forums, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. The digital age gave the Illuminati a second birth, not as an actual organization, but as a viral idea. In the early 2000s, conspiracy forums like Above Top Secret and Godlike Productions became breeding grounds for Illuminati talk. People posted photos of celebrities, flashing symbols, broke down music videos frame by frame, and analyzed political speeches for hidden messages. The lack of editorial oversight allowed theories to expand unchecked, and soon the Illuminati became a meme of its own. YouTube supercharged this trend. Entire channels emerged dedicated to exposing Illuminati evidence. A single music video release by a star like Lady Gaga or Kanye West could spawn dozens of analysis videos
claiming to uncover hidden rituals. Titles like Illuminati Confirmed drew millions of views. What made these videos compelling was their style. Ominous music, zoomed-in triangles, slowed-down audio, and dramatic narration. They didn't prove the theory, but they made it feel thrilling. Social media only amplified the effect. On Twitter and later TikTok, symbols like triangle and eye became shorthand for Illuminati references. Teens joked about their favorite stars being Illuminati confirmed, while others fell into rabbit holes of genuine belief. TikTok specially turned conspiracy culture into bite-sized entertainment. Slick edits of celebrity gestures over eerie soundtracks created a new generation of believers and skeptics. But the internet also blurred the lines between parody and belief. Many people post Illuminati memes as jokes, yet others take them seriously. Irony and sincerity mix until it's hard to tell who genuinely thinks Beyoncé runs a secret society and who is just laughing at the absurdity. This ambiguity keeps the myth alive, because every joke spreads the symbol, and every symbol invites someone to dig deeper. Importantly, the digital age also connected the Illuminati myth to real issues. Conversations about surveillance, government secrecy, mass data collection, and corporate influence are woven into Illuminati narratives. While some theories spiral into fantasy, others echo genuine concerns about how little transparency exists in systems that control our lives. In that sense, the internet made the Illuminati relevant again by tying the myth to very real anxieties about modern power. So now, the Illuminati exist in three parallel worlds. History, a real Bavarian society dissolved in the 18th century. Myth, a cultural symbol of secret power, amplified by art and literature. Internet, a viral meme that both entertains and terrifies, spreading faster than any secret lodge ever could.
If there is one area where the Illuminati myth refuses to die, it is money. Power and wealth have always been intertwined, and for many, the idea of a hidden group controlling global finance feels more believable than celebrities making triangles with their hands. Money, after all, is the invisible thread that ties nations, corporations, and everyday life together. One of the most common claims is that the Illuminati secretly controls the central banking system. The U.S. Federal Reserve, founded in 1913, often becomes the centerpiece of these theories. Critics point out how a small group of bankers and politicians established the system in secrecy on Jekyll Island, Georgia. Conspiracy theorists argue this was not just about monetary stability, but about handing control of America's economy to an elite few, supposedly the Illuminati's front. Names like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Morgans are constantly invoked. These dynasties genuinely wielded immense financial influence, funding wars, building empires, and shaping governments. Over time, this real power merged with myth. The Rothschilds, in particular, became symbols of hidden finance, accused of orchestrating economic collapses, revolutions, and even world wars. Historians push back, noting that while wealthy families had disproportionate influence, the idea of one single family pulling every string is oversimplified. Still, the narrative persists. The New World Order concept is inseparable from economics. Believers claim the Illuminati uses economic crises to push for global governance. For example, the Great Depression of 1929 is said to have been engineered to consolidate wealth. The 2008 financial crisis allegedly allowed elites to buy up assets while ordinary people lost homes and jobs. Today, digital currency and the push for a cashless society are framed as steps toward total surveillance and control, where every transaction can be monitored. Even symbols on money fuel the belief. The US dollar bill carries the pyramid and the all-seeing eye. A coincidence of Masonic design or a deliberate Illuminati marker? Conspiracy theorists argue the very currency Americans use daily is branded with the seal of the hidden rulers. But here's what makes this area compelling. Unlike celebrity hand signs or wild ritual rumors, the financial angle touches on real fears. People feel powerless in the face of inflation, banking collapses, and billion-dollar bailouts. The global financial system is complex, opaque, and often benefits the few at the expense of the many. The Illuminati theory simplifies this. It's not just chaos, it's design. Someone is behind the curtain. Whether you believe in the Illuminati or not, the economic narrative endures because it resonates with lived experience. When the rich always seem to get richer, the idea of a hidden hand pulling strings doesn't just feel possible, it feels obvious.
Wars have always shaped history, redrawn maps, and shifted the balance of power. But conspiracy theories claim that behind the flags, speeches, and battlefields, there's a hidden architect, the Illuminati. According to these stories, wars are not fought for patriotism or freedom, but as carefully staged events designed to enrich and empower the secret elite. One of the most famous narratives is the alleged Free World Wars letter, attributed to Albert Pike, a 19th century Freemason. Supposedly, Pike outlined a master plan for 3 global conflicts that would lead to the rise of a new world order. According to the story, the First World War would weaken monarchies and establish communism. The Second World War would strengthen Zionism and create the State of Israel. The Third World War would ignite a clash between the Western world and Islam, plunging humanity into chaos, from which the Illuminati would emerge as rulers. Historians dismissed the letter as a hoax written decades later, but for believers, the eerie alignment of world events makes it feel prophetic. Theories also tie the Illuminati to the Napoleonic Wars, claiming they used Napoleon as a pawn to weaken Europe's monarchies and pave the way for centralized banking systems. The same logic is applied to the World Wars, where financial dynasties like the Rothschilds are accused of funding both sides, profiting no matter the outcome. When cannons roar, gold glitters, as one conspiracy writer put it. Even modern conflicts, from Vietnam to the Gulf Wars, are woven into this narrative. The Illuminati are said to manufacture wars to profit. Weapons sales, oil contracts, and reconstruction deals funnel wealth upward. Control. Wars justify surveillance, censorship, and erosion of freedoms. Reshape. Each conflict redraws political maps, creating alliances or dependencies favorable to elite interests. Take the Iraq War of 2003. Many argue it was not about weapons of mass destruction, but about oil, control of the Middle East, and the positioning of global power. Within conspiracy circles, this wasn't just political maneuvering, it was another Illuminati move on the grand chessboard. Then there are the invisible wars, cyber warfare, disinformation campaigns, and economic sanctions. Believers claim the Illuminati orchestrates these as well, not for territorial gain, but for global dominance of information and resources. The pattern is always the same: chaos below, consolidation above. Ordinary people bleed, while the elite allegedly grow stronger. Whether real or imagined, this interpretation of history resonates because wars do seem to consistently benefit a small group of powerful actors, while the masses are left to suffer the cost.
When we imagine the Illuminati, we often think of politics, finance, and war. But another thread in their mythology is far more futuristic: the idea that they possess or suppress advanced technologies hidden from the public. This belief taps into humanity's fascination with progress and fear that someone else already controls the future. The story usually begins with Nikola Tesla, Tesla's genius produced ideas that seemed decades, even centuries ahead of his time. Wireless power, remote control, death rays. After his death in 1943, the FBI seized many of his documents. Officially, this was standard wartime precaution, but conspiracy theories claim otherwise, that the Illuminati, through government channels, took Tesla's work and locked it away, using or burying discoveries that could reshape the world. One recurring theme is free energy. Imagine a world where electricity costs nothing, where fossil fuels are obsolete, where every village could power itself without corporations or governments. According to believers, the Illuminati suppress this technology to keep humanity dependent on oil, coal, and the corporate grid. The idea is seductive because it explains why breakthroughs seem to stall despite constant scientific progress. Then there are claims of mind control technology. From HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, to MK-Ultra experiments, stories abound that secret groups have tested ways to manipulate weather, human thought, and even behavior. In the Illuminati narrative, these projects are not abandoned, but perfected, deployed quietly to influence populations, elections, and even cultural moods. Another area of fascination is secret space technology. Some theorists argue that the Illuminati possess advanced spacecraft, reverse-engineered from UFOs. They point to strange patents filed by the U.S. Navy describing anti-gravity propulsion systems and inertial mass reduction drives. Are these futuristic fantasies or leaks from hidden research? In this vision, space exploration is already decades ahead of what the public sees, but controlled tightly by the few. Even everyday technologies raise questions. Why do our smartphones advance rapidly, yet clean energy, medical cures, or transportation breakthroughs lag behind? Some argue this is no accident. The Illuminati allows certain consumer tech to distract and entertain while locking away anything that could shift global power structures. Of course, skeptics point out a simpler explanation. Science is hard. Corporations protect profits, and conspiracy theories thrive where information is incomplete. Yet the Illuminati myth gives these frustrations a narrative. We don't lack solutions, they're being hidden from us. In the end, the idea of secret technology is less about gadgets and more about control of possibility. Who decides what kind of future humanity gets? If someone already has the keys to limitless energy, space travel, or mind control, then our destiny isn't in our hands at all. It belongs to the invisible few.